Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Welcome back. That was a really soft opening. Good morning and welcome back to the PorscheCooled Podcast. It's after Christmas. It's all over again. Steve, are you there?
I am. Was Christmas good?
It was not bad. It was okay. It was very, as you know.
It was harder because you were not with your family as per usual, which makes it hard. But
I don't know. There's a lot of selfish things going on there about Christmas, and I'm trying to work out which one was the one that upset me the most. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, well, usually, you know, I enjoy coming back at Christmas time, coming back to Sydney, because that's the time when we spend the most time in Australia. Do you know what I mean? Like, even though you realized we used to come back, you know, a few times a year, I think we did. At one point there, we were doing five flights to Sydney, long-haul flights to Sydney a year, which was insane, which was absolutely insane. And most of the times I will state on economy, not on business. A few of the times, because we were flying so much, we'd get, upgraded, or we'd get, occasionally we'd use our points and whatever. But most of the times we're flying economy because that flight, is our cost. So, it's not cheap. But anyway, back to the selfish thing. I kind of feel a bit selfish because, I wanted to be back at Christmas, and I really did want to be back home and see you guys and see,
nothing
Tasha's
selfish
family,
about that.
Tasha's family and, my family and I always got the coast, as you know, on to my family's on Christmas Day and Boxing Day, and I stay a few days up there, which is always fun. I normally go for a grueling run with my brother through the sand dunes, which is like a 10-kilometer run, which almost kills me on Boxing Day. Which is a stupid time to do it, but we always seem to do it on Boxing Day.
Yep.
He's more hungover than me, though, because I'm always driving on Christmas Day. But I think what it is, back to the selfish thing, is that I really enjoy Christmas because I come back and it's like that end of the year. You know what I mean? The end of the year when I really enjoy coming back to the car, to the Porsche.
Of course.
I enjoy those drives. You know what I mean? Like we go on a drive and then, I think, not Boxing Day, but, like between Christmas and New Year and a couple of days just before New Year or even New Year's Day, I always go for a drive in the morning. I'll just, if you're busy or whatever, like I did last year, I just went for a drive to, Brooklyn and back. Tasha didn't come with me because I left early in the morning. And just enjoying those drives, you know what I mean? And even looking through some of my old YouTube videos, when I've come back at Christmas and just enjoying the car. And I think it's because it's also that time of year, Steve. We should say this is I did say it's a PorscheCooled podcast, right? I haven't even introduced ourselves. Someone's new to the podcast. They come on, they go, "Who is this guy talking? What is he talking about?"
Where am I?
Yeah, where am I? So I'm Michael, as most of you will know, Michael Barth, and Steve is in Sydney. That's why we're talking through Zoom. But anyway, and I look at those videos and, it's so enjoyable, you know what I mean? And I think, one of the things that I really enjoyed, and we're going to talk a little bit, we're not going to talk about that this week, the servicing thing of the cars, but we're going to talk about it probably next week. But even just coming back, Steve, and just getting the car registered. Like I registered the car online. I did it the other day. Like eventually the CTP green slip insurance that you have to have in Australia, that I could actually get it from Amy and pay for it because I've been waiting for that to come through to pay for it. You can't seem to get that payment reference number. So, like just getting a car, just getting your car re-registered, lately, in the past couple of years, I always get the car serviced just before Christmas. You know what I mean? So it's kind of really nice. So at Christmas, like you have your car and it's freshly serviced and it's got registration for a year and everything's sorted and you feel just, and I've been away and I've come back and everything's cool. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And then this year, I feel like shit. I'll be honest with you, I feel like shit. One, because, someone's damaged my car, which I know, as we said to some people, it's minor, but I can't stop thinking about it. And it's like some nights it actually taunts me. Like I get so annoyed about it that, one, that I'm trapped, I feel trapped. And two, that, I just want to fix it and I can't.
Hey, before I forget, I was actually going to message you about that. Did you want me to go back and pop the driving light out and just try to kind of line it up a little bit better and put it back in, like what we were talking about, to see if it sort of lines up better? I can always go and do that.
Yeah, so I don't know if I explained it properly last time. Did we explain it properly? I mean, someone backed into the car, it split the bumper on the top and the bottom where the parking, is it parking light? You call it parking light or fog light, right?
Parking and driving light, yeah.
Parking driving light is, on the driver's side, which is the right-hand side in Australia. it split the plastic on. I don't even know how they hit it. I had a tire mark on my cover, and then they've split it. Steve went over there, popped the light back in, but it's not sitting flush. I don't know. Do you think it's going to make any difference?
Just because, like, my theory is that I reckon somebody's kind of managed to hit exactly the light unit itself, which is kind of, it's sort of friction mounted-ish, like it's slightly kind of clipped in. But what it's done is that's how it's kind of cracked the bumper around it. And very quickly when I went in, kind of, sussed it out, the light wasn't sitting in the spot properly, so I kind of quickly pulled it out and I put it back in. But possibly what I didn't do was sort of press the crack together, which is why maybe the light isn't sort of sitting in the bumper receptacle kind of as cleanly as maybe it is, as it should. And I didn't have the silly little kind of plain credit card thing with me to then go back in to actually kind of pull it out again properly and just sort of see if I can kind of tinker with it. When I was there, I was actually sort of thinking more about just trying to take photos and everything in a little video so you could kind of see it properly and weigh it up. But I can always go back and have a look.
Yeah, no, those photos were great. I looked at them again last night, actually, which is what upset me.
Oh, no. I should take that album down.
No, I was looking for another photo, and then I thought I'll just look at them again. I looked at them, and it was like it just annoyed me. So I don't know, mate. If you're in that way and you feel like doing it, I mean, we can talk about that later. I mean, but like, you know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean? The end of the year. Do you feel like that with your car? It's like, I don't know. Christmas is like, and I'm looking at photos on Instagram, and it's not helping me. I'm seeing, other people who I've spoken to in Australia and other people who've been on the owner stories, and people are out enjoying their cars and other people are going for drives. And I don't know. It's just like, I'm feeling sorry for myself, I think. Like there's worse problems in the world, but I'm feeling a bit sorry for myself that I don't have the car and I'm not enjoying it. You know what I mean? And then I get a reminder email from Autohouse Hamilton saying my car's due for service. And it's like,
Oops.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I can understand the wistfulness of all of that and the disappointment of the car kind of being damaged. But yeah, grand scheme of things, that sort of thing can be sort of fixed, and it's not kind of like a major thing. So try not to really get you down too much.
Well, then I think about other things. I think about the car being, the 911 being stored for this long, and then I think about tires, and I think about, all the bad things that could go on. Things that get into your head. I know this is a very joyful way to like celebrate the Christmas week here. I know it's still Christmas. Everyone's going, "What's wrong with you?"
It's Festivus.
Yeah, so it's Festivus. Yeah. But anyway, let's get into a few other things here. I don't know. Steve and I have, we've had a really busy past few days. Well, Steve has. I've been just lazing around, really. I have actually been doing things.
Work back in for me, so sorry, I got a bit preoccupied with that.
Yeah, and Steve's working again because he's decided he needs some more money.
I need to earn.
He needs to buy that house.
Those sorts of things.
All right, let's get into the usual things because I do have a shout out to do, and I should do it. Otherwise I'm going to forget. PorscheCooled Exclusive. You guys are going, why are you plugging this every episode? I'm not really plugging it, but there's always a shout out if a new member joins, and we have a new PorscheCooled Exclusive member, Steve. Mm-hmm. And we have Sean, and Sean is coming in from Okinawa in Japan. Okinawa is very familiar to me because that's where a lot of good denim comes from. And having been worked in fashion many years ago, it's a very good spot for denim. Anyway, that's a bit of trivia.
What brands come from Okinawa?
Well, a lot of the main denim mills are in Okinawa.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, so a lot of the really top quality denim mills are in Okinawa. And also they really do a lot of, I think Okinawa in that region is indigo. They're very big on indigo, which is not indigo denim, but indigo dye.
The dye.
It's those t-shirts you buy that are blue and then you wear them for one day and you take them off and your whole body's blue. That sort of dye.
Yeah. I've got a couple of those and I keep thinking, don't sit in your stupid Pepita insert seats in those things.
Yeah, you can't sit on if you've got this is the thing about light-colored seats. I'm kind of really, I'm getting off the track. I'm going to give Sean a shout-out in a second. But light-colored seats light-colored seats. This is going to be one of these episodes, Steve, where we're getting distracted. I'm going to get distracted, okay? So you have to pull me back in line. But light-colored seats, I've got a bit of a thing for at the moment. I kind of like the idea of a light-colored seat. Like I like the 992. Not light color, but I like the 992 with that brown-colored seat. You know, the brown club leather. But even that leather, if you wear a lot of denim and you wear a lot of those sort of colors, the color will come off on the seat. There's no way of avoiding it. Especially when you live in a hot climate like Australia, when it's a hot summer. I don't know how it is in Asia. It must be worse because, you know, and Middle East, they all have light or red colors interiors. But you just can't do it because you're just going to have your seats are going to be...
It definitely transfers.
Yeah, it transfers.
My parents had a 320 BMW with dove grey leather, and that was an absolute nightmare. And I had that VR6, which I had upholstered by Clarence in the saffron leather, which was effectively kind of like a brightish yellow.
I want to get back to that, why you had it reupholstered.
That was terrible.
Let me finish this shout out for Sean, but I want to get back to why you would reupholster your seats in a new car. Is that what you did?
Because they were cloth.
Hang on. Okay, so Sean, hi Sean. We had a bit of a brief chat through...
Sorry, Sean.
We had a brief chat through Patreon, so thanks for joining PorscheCooled Exclusive. Really appreciated. Like I said, he lives in Okinawa, Japan. His brother lives in Sydney, and he has friends in Tasmania. He said he doesn't have a 911 yet. He doesn't have a Porsche. He's wanted one since he's really young. He wants to get one day, and he's listening to the podcast basically because he's enjoying the podcast. He said he really enjoys it, so thanks for that, Sean. And he's listening to the podcast to gain as much info as he can about Porsches. So that's what he's doing. So thanks again, and thanks for joining PorscheCooled Exclusive. Like I said, if you want to join PorscheCooled Exclusive, it does help us keep talking. You just go to patreon.com/PorscheCooled or go to patreon.com and search PorscheCooled. It's pretty easy to sign up. It's very, very easy. $5 US a month. So that would be much appreciated. PorscheCooled owner stories, Steve. Have you listened to it?
I did. Sorry, I've forgotten the guy's name though.
Todd.
356?
Yeah.
Todd,
so
that's it.
This week we had Todd, another 356 owner, actually. So that's two 356 owners we've had. So we had Mark from Mark and Cars, who was on a few weeks back from Perth in Australia. Todd, if you haven't listened to it, listen to that episode. Todd's a really nice guy, really interesting to talk to. Great story.
I found it extremely random how he was looking for a 996/997 and wound up in a 356, but cool.
Yeah, well, I guess these things just present themselves. Do you know what I mean? I guess they just present themselves, and you think, you know, I mean, I suppose
if an unbelievable barn find kind of pops up, then it's probably too good to refuse, sort of thing.
That's the thing, mate. That's the thing, and it seems like it did, you know, and. I'm not going to relive everything in this podcast about what Todd spoke about, but Todd's got a 1957 356A T1, right? He's from the Chicago area. Todd is also a member of PorscheCooled Exclusive. He's been a member for a while, so Todd's been supporting the podcast for some time. And I know Todd was a bit hesitant at first to talk, like I know people are hesitant at first, but it was a really good conversation. I think he enjoyed doing the podcast, and I think he enjoyed listening to it afterwards. But what I thought was interesting, which I said to Todd in the thing, is one, you know, the amount of work that he's doing himself. You know what I mean? The fact that he's managed to source out those two experts, one near him and the LN engineering to get the engine sorted.
Yep.
And the fact that he came from a 1970s Mark I Mustang. I said to him, you've got to tell me the experience when you drive the 356, you know, and it's a completely different experience, right? It's this thing I keep harping on about, and you and I talk about this speed versus experience. You know what I mean? I know there's a balance, Steve, but, you know, like that is really going for the experience from the 356 from the Mark I.
I suppose I don't know much about Mustangs. I'm assuming that it would make a pretty amazing noise, but the performance is all in a straight line, though, isn't it?
I guess American muscle cars are a bit like Australian cars, weren't they? They're a bit the same.
Yeah.
They're not about handling. They're about...
It's all about straight line.
Straight line speed,
The sort of noise and the kind of rumble from a big V8 sort of thing.
Yeah. But I'm always surprised, though, how many barn finds there are like lying around. I don't know whether Australia has all these cars hidden, in the bush, in the outback, where the kangaroos are jumping around. They're jumping over the top of old 911s and 356s. But America's it's just an endless supply, And I know I brought up that thing about Larry Ammo in New York City and that Datsun 240Z that he found.
Yep.
Friends of my parents had one of those. A friend of my parents who used to own a pub had one of those cars. And I thought it was the coolest thing when I saw it. I remember seeing that car. I thought, man, that's such a cool car. That's a sports car. But these cars that have... Yeah, Datsun, right? Datsun 240Z.
Yeah.
Which, if you look at inside of those, they're actually not that bad, the interior, when you look at the interior. I mean, they're so expensive now. They've just become crazy.
Yeah, I know nothing about them, but they seem to have obviously kind of appreciated, much like classic BMWs and Porsches and stuff like that.
But mate, what is it about, and I know, this is a Porsche podcast, we're not going to talk about other cars too much, but what is it about the values of rotary Mazdas, RX-7 Mazdas, Alphas, and Datsun 240Zs?
They're all enthusiast cars.
Like, it's gone crazy that those cars are like, I looked at some prices the other day that would just sort of come up and it was like, whoa, they're very expensive. Porsche's not that bad.
My uncle raves about rotaries. He had one back in the day, like when he was a sort of young guy. And I don't think I've ever driven a rotary, but he sort of said, you have to try one. He said, you have to try one before you die because it's a very different experience. It's like, oh, okay.
But when the RX-7 came out, the Mazda RX-7, I mean, it was, people bought it and it was, popular. But wasn't there issues with the rotary engine? Weren't the rotary engines they had underlying big issues, right?
Yeah, I think they consume heaps of oil and because the sort of shape of it is literally like that sort of triangular rotary thing that it wears on the tips and
right.
means that, it just drinks oil, all that sort of stuff.
So back to barn finds, Todd calls his a barn find. It wasn't found in a barn, it was found in a garage. But it is a barn find. And, if you look at Todd's Instagram, you should check it out, Stone City Outlaw. I'll get this right one day, Stone_City_Outlaw. So go to Todd's Instagram and give him a follow if you haven't already. If you haven't listened to the podcast, go and listen to last week's owner stories. But, these barn finds, like his buddy found it, you know what I mean? Like, and it's just sitting there. And the interior of that 356, he's put pictures on his Instagram and the interior is like almost perfect. There's nothing wrong with it, Steve. You know what I mean? And considering some of the examples that are around, like Todd actually sent me an Instagram message last night, and it was a 911, I think, for sale in the US, like project car. And it was just like fenders missing and rusted and, some of these cars that people are trying to sell, like... And he, I didn't want him to give up the price of what he paid for it, but I think he got a good deal on that 356.
He said that was a bargain, didn't he?
Yeah, and 356As are, they're getting big dollars now. They're getting big dollars.
Is it? All right.
But another thing which I really like about owner stories, Steve, and I've noticed this, and you guys who are listening will probably be nodding your head because people say when I'm talking, they're in the car on the radio and they're wanting to like stop me or nod their head or interject to our conversation, Steve. So, but.
Yep.
You know what I mean? But it's interesting. I look at Instagram and I see a lot of you guys who have been on owner stories and a lot of people that I know, are following each other now and commenting on each other's Instagrams, which I think is really fantastic. You know what I mean? I see it quite often, which is good. Which is good that everyone's sort of connecting and, I guess being on owner stories, you guys have a common bond and, you all chat afterwards and follow each other and DM each other. So I know... a lot of the past owner stories, people are keeping in contact with each other. So that's a nice thing to come out of the podcast, Steve.
Yeah, cool. Agreed.
What else? Where am I?
Was Santa kind to you last?
I got nothing.
Last podcast, you kept talking about Santa kind of leaving you a 912 under the tree, or possibly an F car. KW three-way coilovers and a lift kit.
I think we were misunderstood in the last episode. I had a couple of comments and I just said that to you before we came online. I'm not going to mention the word again, right? I'm not going to say it on this podcast ever. I'm not going to mention that F word ever again. But
you mean fuck?
Yeah, the F word. The thing was, and maybe my question wasn't clear, but my question to you and a question to both of us is, if you had the 911, 912 you wanted, and what else would you want for Christmas? What other car? And I guess...
You told me it couldn't be a Porsche, so that's why
Yeah, it couldn't be a
answered
Porsche
what
because
it
you
did.
already had the Porsche. You know what I mean?
Oh, could I get another Porsche?
Yeah, you could have.
Now you tell me.
No, because what I was trying, I guess I didn't word the question properly. It was more about like, if you weren't getting a Porsche, what would you get? You know what I mean? And that's why I brought up the thing about Paul in New Zealand, who's been on Honest Stories about. I just think I think the F car was a good combination with the Porsches. You know what I mean? And you see a lot of people on forums that have, Porsches. They don't just have all Porsches. Some of them also have a 80s, F car. You know what I mean? It wasn't like I'm going to go out and buy one. I don't have any money anyway. I'm going to have less money in the next few months, it appears.
That's why I nominated an MX-5 as well.
Yeah. So Steve took the MX-5 route.
I was trying to be sensible.
But obviously this is...
coin your phrase.
Yeah, but obviously that thing in the last... If you haven't listened to that Christmas episode, have a listen to it. But basically that was if your Porsche Santa bag is full, my Porsche Santa bag is full, I've got all the Porsches I want, what else would you get? And that was what I was getting to. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Your Porsche bag is full, Steve.
It's never full, mate.
Santa bag, your Porsche Santa bag. What did Santa bring you? We still calling him Santa? I think we can call him Santa. That's politically correct, right? What did Santa bring you?
Santa brought me those... Remember? I can't remember. I think we were just chatting on text. Those Puma sneakers, the Speed Cats.
The driving shoes, the driving boots.
Yeah, but they're not driving boots. They're just
the
like
Sparko
fashion
Puma.
sneakers.
The Sparko Pumas.
Yeah, they were throwbacks. Didn't you have a pair of those in like? It was sort of like late 90s, I reckon. Late 90s?
They remind me of Kung Fu shoes boxing thing. There was that thing with the Adidas karate shoes. They were a bit like a driving shoe. People used to buy them for a driving shoe.
Yeah, I remember those. So
so yours are the Sparko Puma ones, though, right? Is that what they are?
They're just
Yeah, I like those.
Yeah, my wife didn't know what to get me, so she sort of said, "What do you want?" And I was just looking at them, just like, "Oh, just get me these. They're fine."
So do you go faster? Have you tried them out? Have you gone faster in the GT3?
No, I walked Walter, my dog, around the block and got blisters in the back.
Really?
I've got to wear them in. Yeah,
you got to wear them. You got to try them in the car. That's what they're for. They're driving shoes, so you can change quicker. So you can do that.
Back in the
blip
90s,
shift.
I had a few pairs of them. No, I don't think they make any difference, mate. I just like the look of them. They're actually quite comfortable, though.
What color are they? Red.
Black.
Oh, that's good.
Black.
Yeah. I mean, I like to get a pair of driving shoes. I just don't know which one. I know, like I said, people have Pelotti. They still make them, right? Pelotti. But I kind of like the Sparko ones, more Sparko type ones. But not fireproof, not the full-on ones like we said before.
Yeah, like I said, that's why I maintain they're just fashion shoes, because I would feel like a tool and a half, going out for a drive with you or my other mate or whatever, and stepping out of my car wearing like proper driving racing shoes.
Maybe I should get a pair, and then when I come back, we can both wear them and look like, cool guys in our Porsches with our driving shoes on.
Yeah, maybe not, mate. What else did I get?
Yeah,
I bought myself a camera.
Oh yeah, let's talk about your camera, because camera's related to Porsche.
Well, not. It's related only in the fact that I needed it for work because of what I sort of do, plus
take pictures
taking
of women.
photos of
that job or the other job.
Women. You're already referring to my 16-month-year-old baby as a. Yeah, so for family photos and stuff like that. I've always been completely shite at photography, so I've got plenty of photographer friends, so I kind of tapped into a bit of advice and bought myself a camera, and I've been just I gave myself an early Christmas present. I kind of got it a couple of weeks ago. It's a pretty good deal. And
you have plenty of money, so that's good.
Yeah, no, got plenty of debt. But yeah, I've been practicing trying to shoot my car occasionally. I've sent you some kind of examples of stuff.
Yeah, they're good shots, actually.
Cars are very tricky to shoot. I know this from experience, like professionally working on car advertising campaigns. It's a real kind of craft, but just trying to get it right, even just like amateur hour with a sort of reasonable kind of camera. It's not like super duper kind of thing.
But you have the Fuji camera, right? The Fuji XT or whatever it's called.
XT4, yeah.
Yeah, which has got really good reviews. I read the reviews after you told me because I wasn't sure about it. I mean, I've got the Sony, but I never really use it. But I want to get onto that actually, because you are used to... car photography is difficult, and it's the same as doing videos of cars as well. You know what I mean? It's not easy. Yeah. So you're used to directing people in these ad shoots, big ad shoots and whatever. When you do,
yes.
Yeah, but you still, that's your life. That's your life. You're used to directing people. How is it when you're thinking about it yourself when you got to take a photo? Because usually you direct people who have had more years of experience in photography. So how is it when you're thinking about, you obviously would be thinking about how you would direct them to take a shot of a car, and then you're trying to work it out yourself? Is it weird though doing that when you're actually doing it yourself?
What you've just described is the exact reason why I've never been good at photography, and I've never sort of taken it up myself, because I started in advertising pretty young, like 19. And I was so used to kind of working and I worked on car accounts like right back in the day. So Volkswagen was one of the first accounts I worked on. I was so used to working with proper professional commercial photographers. So, I never studied it, so I had no idea about apertures and lighting and lensing and all of that type of stuff. And I was very used to just kind of standing next to somebody and kind of going, look, I'd like it to look like this, and, I'd be describing it in layman's terms. And even today, like if plenty of pro photographer mates will talk to me, quite technically, and it's like, can you explain that to me in English, as in terms of what will the end result of that be, rather than telling me about f-stops and, certain lenses and stuff like that. And that's the exact reason why I'm so shit at it, because I've been so used to working with people that are really good at it and sort of being able to kind of go, I'd love it to look like this, and then they'd kind of go off and go and achieve it and do it. So I'd never practiced it myself.
Okay. To everyone listening, Steve says he's shit at it. I mean, I've seen some of the images. He's not shit at it. Okay, because I've seen shit car photos, and I'm telling you now, these photos are pretty good. And and I think what you've done is like the basic. What you've done is because
Oh, okay, yeah.
I know so much what
now.
you need. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, that the location is important. Like Steve took some photos the other day, which was near shipping containers. Which I want you to take me to that place so I can get photos of my car in front of there too, Steve. And you'll be really good at it by then. You can take the photos for me.
I would say that you're really good at all that sort of stuff, because you've been doing the YouTube thing and the social sort of thing, which, as everybody knows, like I don't partake in sort of social media at all. So this trend of however long it is, like 10 years, where people have really kind of taken to photography just for fun. I never did that as well, because I never post anything on Instagram.
You should put a couple of those
Facebook
photos on your Insta, though. You should go and follow Steve on Instagram, actually. GT Steve, isn't it?
Nothing to look at.
You should put a couple of those images on there. I think Ajmal from Flat Cap Driver asked me for your Instagram the other day. I think he was going over to follow you because he hadn't followed you. You probably noticed he followed you.
I think he did. Yeah. But sorry, Ajmal, there's nothing to see.
I told him that. I said there's nothing on there. No, but I think what you say you're shit, but you're not actually, because those photos, Steve took some of the photos in front of these, burgundy shipping containers or whatever, and like it's deserted, and he took the GT3, and it's just, I guess what it's those basic tips that a lot of people don't know when they're taking a photo. It's like doing a YouTube video as well, I guess. Yep. It's those basic tips where the location is really, really important.
Yep.
And you found a great location, a great backdrop to Porsche. And I know other people have used, shipping containers. You see a lot of photos on Instagram, people taking photos in those sort of situs. But it's not easy to find that. It's hard to find them, exactly. Hard to find them when, one, you're allowed in, and two, there's no one around to be walking in front of your shot or et cetera, or it's on a main road or whatever. So you got the location, great. The framing of those shots, another tip when you're doing, the location and the framing, two really important things. And you frame them really, really well. You know what I mean? And getting the right angle, and also
do you want to talk about that sort of stuff?
Well, we can talk about it briefly, just so people know what
just the absolute
tips.
Basic tips. Yeah.
So location and framing, I think is where is to me it's a really strong foundation. That has to be perfect, correct?
So when you talk about framing, like, again, I'm not going to get super technical, but I remember there's a young Melbourne guy on YouTube and Insta who I wound up watching, and he's really, really good with the camera. He shoots lots of cars. I remember sort of seeing something that he put some tips on there, which is using like a really, really long lens. So you stand back like really far away from your car and you use a long lens, and that helps. So like my camera has a sort of a degree of zooming on it, so I kind of used the longest kind of lens on that and sort of stood back from that. That's one tip. Another tip is people tend to kind of stand just normal height. If you can either get up high or get down low, and the easier one with a car is get down low. So put your camera close to the ground, even if it's a phone, and look up at it. It makes it look a lot more squat. So
I was going to say that.
One.
Can I just interrupt for a second? That shoot low, shoot high thing is really, really important. You know what I mean? I took a photo of my car from Autohouse Hamilton one day. I was up in the service waiting room upstairs there. And my car was just happened to be parked down there, and I took a photo. This is when I first got the car. And I still like that photo. I mean, it's iPhone, but I probably could have done it better. But just the angle of it, I thought, I got to take more photos like that because it's really good. But the shoot low thing is really, really interesting. And I just got an email this morning from Classic Throttle Shop in Sydney. Some of you listening will know what that is. Their email, did you get their email? Are you on their email list?
No.
So they've just got front-ons of cars. They've just done the cars and the new cars in their showroom, and they've just done the front-on, and it's low. And it's just
front-on?
Yeah, it's just the front of the car, and it's just low, Steve. And the shots are great. You know what I mean? Like you look at it, it just makes it so artistic and so nice. You know what I mean? And I think that's what's nice about your photos that you took too. Those, and this is not about that, but being low, but the close-ups you did inside. The close-up angles. It's getting that angle correct, which I think you nailed it.
So the other bit to that is, again, it's probably not too technical, but shallow depth of field. So most kind of really good sort of reportage arty type shots sort of like have one part of the shot in focus and the rest of it is out. So if you can look through things like, like if there's something really kind of close to your eye, like the window frame, but you're kind of looking past the door's open, you can sort of see the window in the absolute foreground, which will get really kind of blurry. Then you kind of focus on, like the steering wheel, whether it's the 12 o'clock marker or the gear knob or something like that. Then everything past that is going to be out of focus as well. That always makes for a really kind of nice, sort of simple type of shot as well. Like shooting interiors is really hard, particularly black ones.
Hard for the lighting, right? So that's the other thing which I don't know if you mentioned yet, the lighting and using the different times of the day. You know what I mean? Especially when you're doing YouTube videos, picking the time of the day. Like sometimes I go out in the afternoon. When do you normally shoot them? Well, sometimes I try to go in the afternoon to get that afternoon sun, but the morning sun, I mean, each time of the day has its purpose, right? You know this, like whether it be morning, whether it be full sun. Full sun's not ideal for videos though, or it's not ideal depending on what camera you're using, I guess, because it's going to be blown out. But and late afternoon is nice. That half light, half dark, if you can get that right, is really nice.
So absolute kind of super old school, like I'm talking 25 years ago, all car photographers would want to shoot at golden hour, which is actually sunrise or sunset. When the sun is literally rising or setting, there's sort of like, it's not even an hour, it's sort of like 20 or 30 minutes, because the light's kind of soft and not harsh. You get very soft shadows, all of that sort of stuff. That's a very old school kind of way of doing things, because I think these days, like, a lot of stuff actually looks quite good in sort of harder sunlight. And the way to pick it is that the shadows become quite dark and long, which make things look a little bit more dramatic. I think it's also depending on the colour of your car. Like my car's white.
Yeah, which is hard to take because it overexposes a bit, right? If it's in bright sunlight, you've got to make sure you get the whole aperture, everything in check.
Yeah, I suppose so. Silver cars are dead easy, but black cars, like dark cars, are very hard to shoot because they're very reflective. You can sort of see everything around it. So,
But I think
that's
it's
about
fun,
it,
to get good photos of your car. And you can do this, you don't need a good camera to do this. You can do it with your iPhone. And I'm sure, I know there's videos on YouTube where people, show you the tips to take photos with your iPhone. I think it's even on Porsche's newsroom site. The Porsche photographer is telling you how to get the great shots. It is actually. I saw it the other week. How to get great shots of your... Yeah. The guy that does photography for Porsche is doing one with... I think it's on Porsche's YouTube channel. If you do search Porsche's YouTube channel, I forget his name.
Oh, okay.
And he uses his iPhone and shows you what to do. But it's similar tips here. You know what I mean? It's light, it's framing, it's getting the car on the right angle. I notice that when I take photos of my 911, sometimes you just get the right angle. It's like, wow, that photo looks great. You know what I mean? But it's getting that sort of turn in angle with the wheels and that right angle, so you get that.
If all else fails, like if you really feel like you have absolutely no idea what you're doing, and this obviously gets super subjective, but probably the best angle traditionally for cars is a front quarter. So it means that pretend you're looking at it dead overhead. Your car's like sort of 5 o'clock, pointing where 5 o'clock is. So you're not dead front on, you're not dead profile, because they're often like two not great sort of things. It's like you're on a slight angle, you're either looking at the front of your car, so your headlights kind of coming towards you, or do the same but from behind. So
I read that
without fail. That's how most if you kind of start to analyze kind of car photography, they're the sort of classic angles where most cars look really good, but 911s, because of that sort of teardrop shape, particularly like both angles, the front and the rear, they always look good like that.
I read something on Duck and Whale magazine's Instagram, and I think he had a photo of something, and he said this wouldn't normally be the ideal photo because of how it was taken. It's one of his photos. I think he said to make sure it's balanced and you get it down the center, that the photo is down the center, like the car's in the center of the image.
Yep.
Is that correct? Something like that, so you get it centered. And he said it was slightly off-center, which wouldn't normally be perfect, but the photo he was still quite happy with. And I guess that's, I don't know. I mean, you can always edit your image, and you should edit your images. I mean, everything I put on Instagram, I edit inside iPhoto first, not iPhoto.
Yeah, that was going to be my last thing.
Yeah, I always edit through there and use the filters and obviously crop them when they need to be cropped.
Exactly. It made me realize too, because I sort of shot some stuff with this new Fuji kind of camera, and like the raw shots straight out of the camera, you can't look at it and go, oh shit, maybe this camera is not as good as I thought that it was. But once I know not everybody knows how to use Photoshop and stuff like that, but once you kind of just put a bit of contrast in it and you sort of tweak the colors a little bit, contrast is probably one of the bigger ones. It makes everything look just a lot more polished and slicker and stuff like that.
But it's good fun taking photos of your car. I mean, I've been enjoying the ones. Steve's been sending them to me on a shared photo library because we're on Mac. And they're good photos. And even the ones he took the other day near your place, which you said weren't great, they were just nearby. But even those, they're good. They're good images. I mean, I use one actually. I use one. I hope that's okay.
Yeah, the interior thing.
Yeah.
They're not great because I think, like normal suburban people, like all of us, and probably the people that you're listening to, like it's pretty hard to kind of go and find like an alleyway with a industrial kind of warehouse wall or whatever. So most of us are surrounded by houses and green trees and grass. Just never looks that good in shots, like that type of background. So trying to find something nice and clean is probably more effective. Yeah,
true. I noticed on Instagram, though, everyone's taking photos around in London because London's empty. So you can see all these photos appearing in Bond Street and places like that. And the other night when we were walking back here, where we are in London, there was guys taking pictures of their AMG and their GTR, and they had it parked in an area where you're probably not supposed to drive, but they drove up and they had, there's all these young guys standing around. They were trying to take good night shots with the Canary Wharf in the background.
Yep.
So when I noticed a lot of people actually in the UK, it doesn't matter where I say we are, Canary Wharf, and a lot of people use Canary Wharf as a backdrop. I noticed there's quite a lot of photos I see that are actually just sort of nearby here.
Oh, okay.
I guess it's not that busy. I guess it's not that busy as well.
Yeah. So just some of that stuff that I was just spouting, I'm assuming that's probably in line, because the stuff that you film, for when you were doing your YouTube stuff, and your Instagram sort of social stuff, is that pretty much in line with?
Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much. I mean, a lot of the time, sometimes I rush it. You know what I mean? Sometimes I rush it. It's difficult filming outside. I still find it a difficult thing because especially, if you're in places where there's a lot of people walking past, it's like, it's not. I never find it comfortable. And it's not even just filming
I feel
yourself. It's even just
self-conscious.
filming your car, and people are walking past, and they're probably thinking, "Oh, you wanker." What are you doing?
Exactly. I felt quite self-conscious about doing, just kind of busting the camera out and sort of, squatting and rolling around on the ground and all that sort of stuff, kind of just with a camera. But
I was filming on the side of the road in, where was it? Old Pack one day, Old Pacific Highway.
Yep.
And there must have been something in the freeway. So the freeway, as soon as I started filming, it's like, why is there so many cars on the Old Pacific Highway in this spot where I pulled over? And then there was apparently some accident on the freeway, so people were trying to divert the bit on the freeway.
Yep.
And like even then, I was filming and I was whatever, and people were beeping when they were going past.
Yeah.
So like I had to couldn't use it because people were beeping. I was thinking, why are you doing that? You know what I mean?
That's weird. Yeah.
Yeah, like people. So it is a weird thing. It is a weird thing. But I think it's interesting. When you get a car, you want to take photos of it. You want to get great photos. Someone is coming up on an owner stories in a few weeks. Amir, who does all his own maintenance, he sent me some photos for the podcast and for the YouTube when I put it up on YouTube. His photos are good. He had a good spot. He lives in LA, so there's he's got it against the backdrop of like the rocky sort of backdrop, and it looks great. The photos are great. So it is really about, I think location is the main one though, isn't it, Steve? Get the location, get a right location, and then work out the rest.
Yep. Yeah, I guess it's satisfying. Like, I know it sounds like a bit of a tool kind of thing because, like I said, I've done it as well, not shot cars as a profession, but had people kind of shoot cars for or with me.
Steve had his slaves shooting for him.
Yeah. All of them. And they were feeding me grapes from up high whilst
Steve underplays this, but he was
bidding.
very, very important. He still is important. But he does underplay it. He does underplay it.
It's just...
He's an advertising maverick.
That,
do a search, you'll come up. He's an advertising maverick.
Negative. It is very satisfying, like when you kind of just get some of the basics right and you take a shot. It's like, oh, actually, I think particularly when you're just sort of like a car enthusiast and you're shooting your own sort of pride and joy, after you've kind of washed it and then you sort of take a nice shot of it. It's like,
appreciation.
That's quite
appreciation.
fun. Yeah.
I mean, and like we said, iPhones or Samsung phones or whatever phone you have are pretty good. iPhones, of course, probably going to be better. But, if you don't have a good camera, the iPhone can do it. It's just about getting those things sorted out. The light, the framing, the location, shoot low, shoot high, like Steve said, it's all important. Hey, I want to go back to that thing, how you said you did Volkswagen ads. And the Volkswagen ads that you worked on were really, really cool, by the way. I remember those now. I remember seeing them. They were really cool. So is that what made you buy a Volkswagen?
No.
Were you when you bought your VR6, was that when you were doing their campaign?
Yes. I didn't get a discount through the client, but yes, I was working on it.
So they didn't give you any benefit?
I think we could have, but generally in those days, I think they would just direct you to sort of like a dealer and they'd sort of go like, tell them we sent you blah, 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 and then you'd kind of get, like still pretty reasonable price. But back then I would have had my uncle beside me and he's a hard taskmaster when it comes to bargaining. So he would have secured equally good deals. So.
But see, anyone who feels uncomfortable about redoing the upholstery in their car or whatever, I mean, all I've done is bought the leather parts, which are sitting in a box back in Sydney, waiting for me to get back to fit them. Getting a whole dash recovered in your 964 that you did, and now the fact that you got 993, sorry, and then getting your whole Volkswagen VR6 recovered. So you've been doing that for a long time. You like doing that interior modification.
So look, again, that came from the fact that mad car enthusiast uncle who came across who needed to get his old what was it? I think it was a 535, the cool one. I can't remember the model designation in terms of the code.
Right.
Before Chris Bangle got a hold of BMWs.
Yeah. The nice shape. So, the one that Zuckerman has.
Yeah. So he was looking to get his upholstered, and he found a guy and basically made friends with him. And then Clarence did my MX-5 for me, and he did an amazing job. And then from there on in, like that was back in the day where the MX-5 had cloth seats as standard. Then I traded the MX-5 for the VR6, which was a brand new car, but it still had a cloth interior. And when you kind of had access...
There was no leather option. There was no leather option on that car?
I can't remember. Maybe there was, but I didn't option it.
Right.
So that was dragon green on the outside, and had Clarence put what was BMW Napa leather in saffron, which was a BMW... no, it was brilliant. It was so good. If I can dig up pictures, I'll send them to you. I'm pretty sure that you'll kind of go, yeah, okay, cool.
I remember. I remember that car. I remember that car when you had that car. I did actually see that car. If you think back, I'm not going to say it on the podcast, but I do remember seeing that car.
Yeah.
But I don't remember the interior.
The interior? The interior was, that was a great car.
Because VR6 at the time was like the car to have, and Steve had it, of course. It was like, in Australia, it was like, wow, to get a VR6, it was pretty cool, yeah. Yeah. Only rich people had them. Only rich people had them.
I can see some sort of weird running theme this episode. I have to start fighting fire with fire in a sec.
Is Steve rich? Yes, he is. He's rich.
No, I am not. But yeah, no, like to your question, because it's funny that you say that. My mate with the GT3 was just picking my brains recently about. I think he's obviously thinking about like what little updates that he can do to his. He's had this GT3 for about a month.
So no issues since you've been talking. There's no issues.
No, I don't think so.
He's got the comfort seats, right? The normal seats.
He's got the comfort seats, but he's got a leather steering wheel, and he was asking about how to go about, or like what was the best option to get like a Alcantara sort of steering wheel. I think he has a bit of a thing for Alcantara. And,
well, that's easy.
I was just I was just sort of explaining it to him. Yeah, except getting it from Australia to London would be a nightmare, as I kind of experienced, because I tried to kind of send something to Gary at FX, and I balls that up completely.
Yeah. Well, I told you I got hit with, when all those parts hit Australia, I got hit with GST and duty in Australia. It was a lot.
And I had no idea that sending stuff from Sydney to the UK, that you get stung with VAT unless you sort of mark it up the right way.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, my sunroof part that was missing, that was not sent, and the other part was sent, the long story that everyone's heard before.
Yep.
He wanted to give me a refund. I said no, because I still want it. And I think he's going to send it. I won't have to pay duty on it because I think he's going to send it in someone else's order. I don't know how I get it from that other person. He hasn't made it yet, but I don't think he could find the part.
Yeah, right.
But I think he said he's got some other person in Australia's got a big order, and he's going to add it into that order. I don't know how in the hell, because I'm not there. I have to get in touch with his brother, how I'm going to get that part from this other person. It's going to be a bit of a weird one, that one. So I don't know how that one's going to work. I keep telling him to send it to the UK. Just give it to me in the UK, but I don't know why he's hesitant to, for some reason.
Yeah. But back to your point, though, I think you were about to ask about retrimming an interior, and my mate with the GT3 was sort of saying the same thing, which is like, oh shit, do you really, like, is it really going to be kind of good? Like, can you, will it be on par with out of the factory?
Absolutely.
And I would argue that a good trimmer like Linus and John at Pro Stitch and my old mate kind of Clarence, who when you find somebody good and they spec the leather and they know what they're kind of doing, and they kind of spend the time kind of getting the stitching right, absolutely, I think it's just as good as factory. Sometimes it can be better.
But if he just wants the steering wheel done, wouldn't you best to send him to John at Pro Stitch or that other guy in Artarmon that Justin passed on to me, which I gave you the details for, which I can't think of.
Yeah, I passed it on to my mate. He was starting with the steering wheel, but then he was talking about center consoles and lower dashes and upper dashes and all of that sort of stuff.
Oh, you start to get expensive, don't you, if you do that?
Yeah. Well,
but maybe that's better to take it to John at Pro Stitch for that, because the people in Artarmon, Justin had them revitalize all his leather. I guess they do upholstery as well, but he had his 996 cab. Justin, if you're listening, I hope I haven't got this wrong. And he got them to revitalize it. And I think he said it was
exactly
just bring the leather back to life. Yeah, like those videos on YouTube.
Repainted it?
I don't know. I think he said it was a bit worn and he had them redo it.
Yeah.
I think he said in the podcast it was about $1,000 from memory.
Okay.
Just
Because I've seen some stuff where, like, like if your leather's cracked, they kind of put a little bit of filler in it, and then, like, most leather is actually like a painted finish on top. It's dye.
Yeah.
And they sort of effectively repaint it or re-dye it, and then sort of polish it out again.
Yeah, I saw that company in the UK actually that do that. They put some kind of paint on it. I don't know if that looks great. I'm not 100% sure if that looks fantastic. But I mean, if he does that in his GT3, if he gets the dashboard done, he gets the center console done, and he gets the steering wheel. That's a big cost, because I asked Linus about the center console, and I think it was about, and this is not included. This is him giving me the part, and I think it was about £1,600.
Oh, with the part? Because the part would be expensive if he couldn't
secondhand. It wasn't that expensive, the part. He said he could get them a couple of hundred.
Okay.
I think it was about £1,600 for the center console. And I mentioned before, the leather dashes, you can get that leather dash direct from Porsche. He knows that, right? It's on Suncoast.
Yeah.
$5,000.
But that's a very dear kind of piece.
I don't know. How much would it cost you to get reupholstered? $5,000 US.
I don't know the answer to that, because I've never obviously had to do it, but I remember Clarence did my 993, and realistically, I got mates rates because he became a sort of bit of a family friend kind of thing, but it wouldn't have been even close to $5,000.
Anyway,
but that was a long time.
I mean, that's the fun of owning a 911. That's the fun of owning a Porsche, where you get, you get leather parts. There's always parts you can buy. You can buy OEM parts. You can buy the direct Porsche parts. You can go to it. We've talked about this before, but exclusive option. There's people in the UK, people in Sydney, John at Pro Stitch, that a few of the listeners I know who are listening know that company. Have used him before. Steve's friend, which you won't be able to find because he's only doing friends things, I think, isn't he? He's not actually. Is he open to the public?
Doing custom stuff, I think, you'll be waiting a long time, put it that way.
Yeah, but obviously it's still cheaper to recover your original steering wheel than buy a new one, because the steering wheels are expensive.
Yeah, there's tons of places, like, and overseas, like there's guys in Poland, like Carbone do it, Dallas, there's a Dallas place, Dallas steering wheels, Royal steering wheels.
Yeah, Royal steering wheels, yeah. Someone sent me that link, actually.
There's all these places that... have really good reputations, and you just have to kind of send them your steering wheel. The problem, if you're doing it, say, from Sydney, is
you can't drive your car.
So for however long you're without your steering wheel, unless you've got a spare one.
So when are you going for a fang again? When are you going for a drive again with your mate in the 2 white GT3s?
He actually asked, but I couldn't make it. I had the second part of my wife's family Christmas.
You should go for a drive with him and take a couple of shots of the two cars together. That would be cool.
Yeah,
you should get him take him in front of those containers and take two. It's like a double mirror image.
Waiting for you to get yours, mate.
Yeah, I know.
Be through.
I'm going to get one. I'm going to get GT3 now.
Yeah, do it.
As well as a 912.
Yeah, do it.
I am. I'm going to get a GT3. My car's ruined now. It's broken. Upset.
Get rid of it.
What else? I didn't actually watch the video in its entirety, and I'm going to watch it. But on Harry's Garage, he was praising the base Carrera in the 992, which comes back to what we've talked about before. Is the base enough? You know what I mean? And I think I want to just bring that really quickly, Steve, because we're at the end of the podcast almost. But it's that thing where people, it's this thing that is common thread running through owner stories about, not waiting, buying the 911 you can afford now. And I think it comes back to that base Carrera thing. You shouldn't overlook a base Carrera. Even if you want a 997, I want a 997 Carrera S, I only want a Carrera S, If a 997 base Carrera comes up, take it. Honestly, take it. Because the experience is still there. I mean, he said that the 992 Carrera was, I think, better than the Carrera S. He thought it was all you need. And maybe the new 992, because it's got so much more power as well. I don't know how much.
Plenty quick, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what the price differential is between a Carrera S and a Carrera. I don't know what that is. I guess it's $30,000 in Australia, probably. Ish.
I don't know, actually.
Yeah, I don't know either. But,
don't know the answer to that.
I guess if you have the money, you stretch it. If you don't have the money, there's nothing wrong with the base Carrera. It's still the Porsche. It's still engineered to be a 911. It's no different. Yeah, it's got a little bit less power. Yes, it's got a little bit less of the fancy bits inside. But experience-wise, I think it's more...
Still an amazing car.
Yeah, it's an amazing car. But I think it's still more relevant, Steve, when you're looking for a used one. Like, if you're looking for a 991, for example, now, Obviously, people want the Carrera S or the Carrera GTS, but I don't know. If a 991 base Carrera came up, there's nothing wrong with it. You know what I mean? There's nothing wrong with getting a base Carrera. Well, it's not really a base Carrera, it's a Carrera. You know, there's nothing wrong with a Carrera. It's still got everything that you pretty need. And to start with, and, you know, I go back to what Nick said with his Carrera 4S in the very first owner stories. You know, it's like training wheels. He haven't had a 911 before. It's like your training wheels. It's a good place to start.
Plus all the kind of sort of stuff that we kind of ramble on about too. If you're into that sort of thing and you start kind of horsing around with it and tweaking suspension and putting lowering springs or modding a little bit of your interior, short shift kits, little exhaust tweaks and everything, you still have lots of fun with it. So there's absolutely nothing wrong with the base model.
Yeah, true. What else do we want to cover today, Steve? We want to cover our 4 questions. We keep coming back to this 4 questions. It's not that exciting,
sure.
There's 4 questions. We could just do it now. Okay, so I saw a thing on Hodinkee. They were talking about watches. Some of you guys might have heard this podcast. Hodinkee is a watch site. You know, the guy's got millions. He's got lots of Porsches as well. But it was someone else doing the interview, the guy that always does the watch interviews, and he was asking someone 4 questions. So we kind of put these questions to Porsche. And the first question is, Steve, you ready for it?
Yep, go.
Most overrated Porsche?
I have never driven one.
Yep.
I have never driven one, so I don't really know what I'm talking about, but I will nominate like a 930 slant nose, the flat nose, because I just don't like the look of them. I don't understand what the fuss is about. Like, if you kind of put like a normal one next to a slant nose, I'd kind of go the normal one looks better. And I know like it's going back to like the Le Mans race or like a 917? No.
I don't know a lot about the history, but I agree with you. I mean, they always appear on Instagram and they're always there, but I don't know. They're most overrated? Yeah, probably. I think the most. I'll give you my answer. I think the most overrated is the 959.
Ooh, okay.
And I know that's probably going to be controversial, but the 959 in which most of them are in the comfort spec, which was the main spec, I think. I remember listening to someone talking about this, and they said the 959 has obviously had a huge influence on the 993 Turbo. And a lot of people say it's better. And a lot of people say that, the technology and whatever wasn't that went into the 993 Turbo. And people say the 993 Turbo is a better car. And then I remember what, what's his name? Porsche Malone, Cam Ingram was saying about it. That most people have the 959 in the comfort spec. And basically it's really overrated. That the 959 Sport and the 959S, I think it was, or is it 959S is the same as the 959 Sport, which has bigger turbochargers, etc., increased power, is the one to get. The comfort one is pretty overrated, basically, is what he said too when you get in and drive it. I've never driven one, but I think it's a bit, I'm not so sure about the 959.
It's fairly controversial, mate.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of the 959.
One of their most iconic cars. Yeah. The look of it's not like the prettiest sort of thing compared to like a lot of other ones because it's quite complicated and the overhangs are so long and all of that type of thing. So I kind of get it from an aesthetic point of view, but I don't know, like it was pretty groundbreaking from a tech point of view.
Yeah, I don't know. Controversial. That's just what I think. Yep. I'm not right or wrong. I'm just, just an average guy talking about Porsches. Okay, next question. Yeah. Most underrated Porsche. Guy, now we're into the most underrated Porsche. Steve.
Standard 993.
Why?
Well, there's this thing, I think, because as we've kind of banged on about, like 964s have become all the rage, which has sort of made 993s take a bit of a back seat. I would argue, so I've kind of read a few sort of different things, like I think Jethro Bovingdon, who I rate very highly, sort of said that he didn't really fancy like a standard 993. I get why, but the caveat to that, and I've said this before, is as soon as you mess with the exhaust a tiny bit, go put a Fister thing on it. They're so old these days that there's no way that you'd have it on the standard, the stock suspension. And I watched some of the YouTube guy, an American guy, what's his name? Enthusiast, I think. Enthusiast.
Right.
He's got a 993 that he just put something, I think it may have been Bilstein's or something like that on it. And a standard 993, as soon as you kind of put like a tweak, like probably the suspension and maybe the exhaust, then it is very, like it doesn't deserve the criticism that it gets.
Okay. So better than the 964?
I don't know about better. It's just not as shit as everyone sort of makes out.
Okay. Well, most underrated Porsche most people are going to know what I'm going to answer. I'm going to say
912.
the 912. And I'm going to put a bit of caveat there. It's not just the 912. I guess it's the 912, but it's also, I guess, the 914. But the 914, I think was underrated. I mean, now obviously both of these cars are coming up, and I think it's because they were in the shadows of the 911, especially the 912 being, 911 body, but just a budget spec 911 with a 4-cylinder engine instead of a 6-cylinder.
Yeah, sure.
I think it's really underrated, and I think you can see now that things are changing. People have got over that, and people enjoy, it's got the same gearbox, the dogleg gearbox, 5-speed, 901, isn't it? 901 gearbox. And I think that's, it's not because I'm a fan, but I really do think it is the most underrated Porsche.
Okay.
Next question.
About it to really understand. Go.
What was the next question? Okay, this sort of follows on. Most misunderstood Porsche.
996 that isn't a turbo or a GT3.
Yeah,
So
I'm gonna answer straight away. I agree with you. I didn't want to put this in the most underrated Porsche, the 996, because I don't think it's underrated, but I think it is.
No, because it's got a bit of a following now.
Yeah, I think it is misunderstood, and now it kind of fits into that underrated, that ugly Porsche segment a bit because of the headlights.
Yeah.
But it's more that it is misunderstood, and I think people are seeing it for something else today, and that's reflective in the amount of people buying them. Of course, they're cheaper.
Yeah, it's funny. Like, I remember when I had my 993, like, I wouldn't have touched a 996. Like, I remember sort of saying, it's like, oh, would I want to upgrade the 993 for a 996? And it's like, not a chance in hell at the time. And admittedly, I probably still wouldn't. But if I didn't have a 911 and I wanted to kind of get into one, like, amazing driving experience. Like, yes, the looks might not be as kind of cool as, an old air-cooled or, like a more recent one or whatever else. But that doesn't make it a bad car. Just, it's still a 911. It's still kind of got like a flat 6-boxer engine at the back. It's still kind of got, the engine in the rear and like the same handling traits and all of that. And one of the Porsche chat guys that you sort of said, the guy in Melbourne, sort of said that it drives better than a 993. It's like, yeah,
James.
I bet you it does.
James, yeah.
Absolutely bet you it does. Like, when was the last time Porsche released a car that, wasn't better than the previous generation?
But he was saying the 98 with the options that he had in that white Carrera white one. In 98 because it was the lighter one. He was saying specifically that year.
Yep.
So maybe it is. I mean, maybe the early ones are better. Maybe this is why Magnus Walker always harps on about getting the first of the generation. Maybe it's not a collector thing. Maybe it is. Maybe it's before.
Yeah,
maybe I don't know. Do Porsche fix things so it's not as good? Like, is the 996 GT3 Mark 1 better than the Mark 2? I know AP says he prefers the 0.2, but a lot of people prefer the 0.1 because it's rawer. And then they kind of fixed it and made it less that way, right?
Yeah, possibly. I don't know. There's sort of funny little anomalies like, what was it? Like, early 993s, they had better sports seats than the later 993s.
Yeah.
Like better bolstering and stuff like that. So there was some sort of like carryover options, I think, from a 964 to a 993. Probably the same with most of the kind of crossovers. Maybe that's why. But
here's a thought, mate. Is it because, just let's go 993, right? Is the first 993 better than a later 993? Because the first 993 is closer, and I'm not saying you're like closer to the 964, where the 993 and 96 is getting closer to a 996 because they're developing the 996 almost at the end of that run of the 993. Is that what it is, do you think? Is there some crossover in their development?
Most enthusiasts will sort of say to you, like, be specific 993s, that you want a Vari-RAM model, not a non-Vari-RAM. So
and that's the latter models,
the later
right?
models are supposed to be the better ones, yeah. And, I think the same kind of goes for, 996.1 versus 0.2 GT3, 997.1 versus 2 GT3s. Generally, I don't necessarily agree with Magnus Walker.
Yeah, I guess they
I
fix
wouldn't
up
buy the first of a generation. But
because they fix up the issues later on, right? They do actually fix the
Yeah.
issues up. Well, they try to fix them if they
honed
can,
and-
apart from the IMS,
Yeah,
which they
yeah.
couldn't really fix.
Yep.
They kind of sweep it under the rug. But like the GT3, like you bought the first generation 991 GT3 compared to the second one. Obviously, the second one's a lot better.
Yeah.
Okay, last question because we're running out of time. Last question is, what is it? Question.
What Porsche should everyone experience at least once?
yeah.
Whether it's borrow from a friend, drive a demo. What's
is it?
your answer?
My answer
GT3,
is, well, this is a difficult one because I haven't experienced it and I should experience it. So I'm not saying you should experience it because I have and I say you should do it. I mean, from something I've experienced, I would say 997 GT3 of any type. After driving yours just that one time, I would say if you haven't, that's because I've experienced it, and I'd say you need to do that because it's completely different to the Carrera. Even though I've been saying base Carrera is enough, it's completely different. And I think the thing is, maybe that's the thing. You get a base Carrera or you get a GT3. You forget, and I'm sorry to everyone who has S's and GTSs. I'm not having a go, but I'm just saying there's such a big divide. There's such a big gap. It's a big difference in experience. So for me, driving a GT3, obviously you should experience that. Cars I haven't driven, it would have to be for me either the Carrera GT or the 918 Spider.
Yep.
I'd like to experience those because I think they're just, especially the Carrera GT actually. I think it'd be good to do back to back.
Between those two.
Back to back, you know what I mean? Because one's hybrid and one isn't. And it's like the progression, I guess, to the next, the Spider and the Carrera GT. And remember, the Carrera GT was out of favor for a while. I remember even Jay Leno talking about this when he was doing that video on his, which is a fantastic video if you haven't seen it. I know we mentioned it before. That, the price just dumped on those. They were 400 thousand, they went down to 200,000 US, and now they're up to $1 million US. People didn't want them for a while. Can you imagine if you pick one up for 200,000 US? It's because of the gears, because people thought they were going to ruin the clutch every time they got into it.
Because it had such a small kind of clutch and it was a little bit tricky to get off the line kind of thing.
Yeah, just education though. What's yours, mate?
Yeah. GT3. Because
GT3.
Pretty much what you sort of said, because it's remarkably different from the other kind of models, even though it's sort of based on the same thing. And this, I'm assuming it applies to any generation from 996 all the way to 991 or 992. They're just different.
Yep.
And if you haven't ever driven one, then and you love your kind of standard kind of models, go and try one just for fun. Even if it's just for fun. Like I don't think it's for everyone. I can understand, like when people sort of say that, and when salespeople told my uncle, sir, this is not for you. I can kind of understand why it's not for everybody. But if you're just going to go and fool around and sort of go and experience something, go and try GT3.
Yeah, even though it looks very similar, and sometimes you look inside and it looks like, oh, this just looks like my Carrera, especially when it doesn't have the lightweight buckets. You know what I mean? It is completely different. As soon as you start it, even with, I know Steve's has got the numeric shifter and numeric cables and everything like that, but even in the standard format, I'm sure it's completely different. The whole feel of the car it's just different.
It is different, yeah.
Yeah, and it's what Porsche do so well. It's like the surface looks similar as but it's under the surface, and it's that engineering that they excel in, and it really does. It's an amazing car. I have to get one. I think the perfect. I said to Tasha the other day, the perfect two-car garage is a 997 GT3 or a 992.1 GT3 and a 912.
Yes. Yeah. Is the silver one still for sale?
Yeah, it's still for sale. The one in Australia. Wish someone would buy that. I don't know how much you would take. You think you'd take like 210?
Just throw it off, mate.
Offer him 210. It's like 240. It's been sitting there for ages. Must like want to offer him 200. I want to do what Ajmal does. Just offer low. Sorry, Ajmal.
Yeah.
Just go in low.
And
no offense. You don't have to sell it to me, but I'll give you 200 for it.
Tell him who you are, and then he'll.
Who am I?
You're Michael Bath.
Who am I?
Michael
Someone
Bath.
left a funny comment the other day. It made me laugh. Was it on YouTube? Or what was it? Someone left a funny thing. There's some funny comments at the moment. There's some really annoying ones too, but there were some really funny ones. All right. That's it. This is the, what is this? This is a How Was Christmas show, I guess. How was Christmas, Steve? Christmas was fantastic. That's what we should be saying. Fantastic.
Poor humbug.
What's happening New Year? You going to watch the fireworks in Sydney?
No, Sydney's shutting down, man. Sydney is shutting down.
I don't know. This UK
these little
variant.
outbreaks are getting worse.
Yeah, I noticed that.
I think they're knocking it back to 5 guests per household if you're going to go and do something.
I don't know. I don't want to talk about COVID, but you want to hope this vaccine actually covers this new variant that keeps being thrown around.
Keeps mutating. There's another
Yeah.
one, isn't there? There's 2 UK versions.
Well, once it starts being carried by animals and we catch it from animals, then we all have to be worried.
Bloody hell.
There's lots of stories out there, lots of people worried about a lot of things. I try not to read them. Tasha tells me about them, but I try not to read them. Anyway, I hope everyone had a great Christmas. And New Year is... we're actually recording this, just so you know, because it's a very weird thing. This is actually going live on New Year's Day, this podcast. As you know, we record this on the Wednesday, 2 days before. So Patreon members actually get it 1 day early. So Patreon members will listen to this on Thursday, tomorrow. And everyone else will listen to it on Friday. So it's another reason why to join PorscheCooled on Patreon, because you get to listen to it a day early, Steve.
Mm-hmm. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Why are you not smiling?
Did that sound convincing?
Are you having a party?
It didn't
Are you
sound
having a
convincing.
party at your place? All the
No,
kids
mate.
coming over, all the cousins
I'll be asleep at 9 o'clock.
Really?
I can't remember the last time I've actually seen the New Year in. Like, probably I was like 18 or 19 or something.
I have to admit, last year we did nothing as well again, and I got up early New Year's Day, I think, and I went for a drive actually.
Went for a drive?
Yeah, I went for a drive. Yeah, I did.
Perfect time to
I
do
did
it.
by myself. I went for a drive to Old Pack that morning. I remember it was early. I woke up
perfect time to
early.
do it.
Yeah, it was great. Fantastic. No one around. All right, mate. That's good.
All right. Take care.
Have a good week. We'll talk again
Yes.
in 1 week's time, as we do.
Stay safe, mate.
Yep, you too. All right, thanks everyone. That was Steve from Sydney. You know him already. I'm Michael. I'm in London. Going back to Bahrain soon, actually. Going back to Bahrain in a couple of weeks, I think. Steve? You're gone already.
I stopped
Steve's
talking.
gone. Steve's gone. He's gone. So he just leaves me. Just leaves me here.
Yeah.
All right.
Like I normally stop talking at this point in time. Isn't that what an outro is?
All right, everyone. Thanks for listening to the PorscheCooled Podcast. We'll talk again next week. Make sure you listen to Owner Stories with Todd, Stone City Outlaw. It's a really good one. Check that one out. And we'll talk again soon. Thanks for listening. Bye for now.